College Station. I'm Grace Hollowell, and today I'm joined by Water Services Coordinator Jennifer Nations. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
We have had you on the show several times before, and it's always a fun time to talk water with you. And today we're going to cover quite a few things, but we're kind of going to start off with a background about you and what it is that you do. I know you're very passionate about water and what you do, and you are very knowledgeable about where our water comes from, why it's so important. So let's kind of kick this episode off by talking about you and what you do here for the city.
So I am the Water Services Coordinator. I handle the public outreach and education programs for the utility and the conservation programs, drought contingency planning. And then recently, within the past couple of years, I added a sort of, I guess, a volunteer role to my job. I get to serve as a municipal voting member on the Brazos G Regional Water Planning Group. So that's been really exciting too.
What does that entail?
So there are 16 regional water planning groups in Texas, and they plan for all different types of water needs, municipal, manufacturing, industrial, mining, agriculture, and they look at where the water is needed in the future, where the water is going to come from, water management strategies, and so all of these different interests have a seat at the table. And the regional plans get rolled up into the state water plan, which then kind of prioritizes projects for funding. The state water plan is done by the Texas Water Development Board, which loans out a lot of money for different projects. So if someone needs funding for pipe repair, for a water loss mitigation program, or not that these happen very often, but like a new reservoir or something, they might give, that might be in the plan, or desalination or something like that. That's going to be in the plan.
Yeah, so planning is something that is very important in all aspects of what we do, but especially with water,
right?
Which you might not always think that that's something that goes into it. You might just think water's water, we have it, but
right.
It
you
is.
Turn on the tap and it's there. You flush the toilet and it goes away, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's about my extent of it. But obviously, there's a lot more that goes into it. How long have you been with the City of College Station in your role?
A very long time, probably over 25 years. I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So you're pretty seasoned in the art of water, and especially water for our community. And I know, at least on social media, sometimes people can have questions,
right?
Or have some misconceptions about our water here. So what would you say is like the biggest misconception about our water quality or water supply in College Station is?
I think some people move here and it tastes different, it feels different on their skin, or they don't understand the smell. But there's been negative headlines around the country about different water systems having issues, and they kind of bring that here, or someone will tell them, oh, the water here is nasty or something, and they automatically think, they associate that with it's not safe to drink. And that's not the case at all. And I get a little sensitive about that because, water utility professionals understand that the product we're providing supports public health, and we have to do our job. We have to make sure that it's safe to drink and meets all the Safe Drinking Water Act rules. Like, if people get sick or die, there's licenses of operators that are on the line. So when people say, oh, you can't drink College Station's water, I'm like, you are questioning the safety of the product that we're putting out.
Yes.
And people don't understand that that's, they think, oh, well, I just meant it tasted bad. And I'm like, you're right. But what I'm hearing is you're telling people that we are not doing the number one job that we're doing.
Yes, safety is very important, and there's a lot of checks and balances that y'all work with and work on to ensure that safety for our water, and we'll get into that in a little bit. And what is something that makes you so passionate about your job? Like you said, you've been here quite a while. This is something that you're very, you have a passion for it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
So what gets you up in the morning and inspires you to keep doing what you're doing?
Yeah, when I started this job, I wanted to do something in water, and I was kind of floating around, and the position came open at the utility, so I took it. And just watching what my coworkers do, and the classes that they have to take to be able to get their licenses, or watching the operators work through the night to fix a broken water valve or repair a pipe leak so that the customers can stay in water. and looking around at other utilities and meeting people in my profession and seeing the passion and professionalism that they have, and looking at the history of water utilities over time, that has made me have more of an appreciation for what I do.
Yes, it is something that there is a lot of moving parts, and it takes a lot of people to keep the water on,
Right.
so to speak.
Yeah.
And like you said, in the middle of the night, emergencies happen at any time, and you and your team are always available and ready to respond to help in those situations. And we've touched on this a lot already, but how does what you do impact our community directly?
So a few years ago, American Water Works Association had this program, this like ad campaign called Only Tap Water Delivers, and it was 4 pillars. I'll see if I can remember them because it's been a while since they've pushed it. But it was quality of life, public health, fire protection, and support for the economy. Like tap water does all of those things,
Yes.
and we don't think about that.
Yeah, like I said, you turn it on, you turn it off, and it's kind of something that's in the back of your brain unless you're really in it day to day. So that's why the education aspect of what you do is important,
Right.
to get people thinking about, oh, it's more than just turning on your faucet. There's a lot that goes into it to help keep us safe. And what is something that you think that most people don't know about water services?
I think, you can look at different communities, and sometimes people don't know where their water comes from. They don't know if it comes. Sometimes we ask people around here, and they say, "Oh, does it come from the Edwards Aquifer, or does it come from Lake Bryan?" So, yeah, they may not know where their water comes from. They may not know that it's tested, routinely. They may not know that the cheapest water we'll ever have is the water we already have. So I try to get that message out.
Yeah, so speaking of, where does our water come from?
So our water comes from the Carrizo-Wilcox Aquifer in northwest Brazos County. Specifically, if you think of it like a layer cake, there's one formation called the Simsboro Formation that provides the vast majority of our water, and then we get some water from the Carrizo Aquifer and the Sparta Aquifer. And I think now people kind of are starting to understand that we're all groundwater based, and they know the name of that aquifer because we've had the controversy about the water transport out of the community. And there's another community in East Texas that is also looking at groundwater transfer, and that's something that is discussed in the water planning process also. But so people are starting to understand that where our water comes from, but mostly they don't. And there's been some actual research done on what happens when people understand the source of their water and like their readiness to support utility rates or projects to protect the source of an aquifer or to conserve that water, because they understand, all right, our water source is Lake Travis, and Lake Travis is dropping. I understand I need to conserve something like that.
Right, and where I come from, my hometown is right on the lake, Lake Erie in Pennsylvania. So their water source comes from the lake, so it's much different. And people see that and they're like, "Oh, we're never going to run out of water. We have this whole big lake."
Right.
But with groundwater, it's a little different because you don't see that.
You don't see it, and our aquifer is not one that responds directly to rainfall because it's 3,000 feet deep where where our wells are drilled. And it's basically prehistoric. It's dinosaur water, and so when we have a rainfall event, it's not like the water level is going to go up or down. Versus the Edwards Aquifer in the San Antonio area, that one does change based on pumping and rainfall in that. So people are very tuned into that, but not so much here.
So where can people learn more or go to find more if they are curious about that?
I'm always going to recommend our website, maintained by the outstanding public communications team. And then they can also go to the Water Development Board. There's information about all the different aquifers of Texas and the major rivers of Texas. Our Brazos Valley Groundwater Conservation District also maintains a website, and they have a education piece on their website where they list water-related articles. They just kind of comb the media every week, and I get an email every week. There's lots and lots of news articles about water issues, groundwater, surface water. So those 3 sites would be a good start.
Okay, so it's kicking things off for this episode. We covered your background and your history and stuff like that. So we're going to talk about Smart Irrigation Month. We're about halfway through July now, and July is Smart Irrigation Month. And people in Texas have irrigation. It is needed, especially in the summertime months for people's landscapes. That's something that I wasn't used to until I moved here, because I was used to a northern climate where, irrigation wasn't necessarily needed for everybody, but I have seen the effects for my yard specifically needing to be watered, especially this time of year. So let's kind of give a brief synopsis on what Smart Irrigation Month means to our residents.
So it's something promoted by the Irrigation Association and also the EPA WaterSense program. They do it in July because July usually represents the peak irrigation month. We are in the dog days of summer, just the heat of summer, even though this year has been kind of wet. And we also know that our water demand tends to really start to ramp up in the June and July and especially August timeframe. So this is a month where we try to get people to think about their irrigation systems, think about how much water it uses, learn how to operate them, and just be more efficient with their irrigation.
And what are some tips to help people be more efficient when they're using their irrigation systems a bit more during the summer?
I think one thing that they can do is we'll get into a pattern where it's hot, it's dry, we haven't had rain, and so this might be the time of year where you might start to have an automatic setting. But for the most part, for most of the year, I think keep it off and then run it as needed. So you need to know where that off button is on your controller. You need to know how to program your controller, and I help customers do that with the irrigation checkup service. Turn it on at least once a month and just walk through, watch what your systems are doing. We do have the sprinklers NICS 10 to 6, no spray irrigation between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. as part of our ordinance because we don't want people to be wasting water during that high evaporation time. But if you have an exception to that is, if it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon or something and you have some free time and you want to turn on your system and look through it, if you're out there actively monitoring it, that's okay. But yeah, you need to look at, do you have a rotor that's going way into the street, or do you have a broken sprinkler that's shooting up a geyser? If your system normally comes on at 3 a.m., and I do recommend people irrigate in the early morning hours to combat evaporation, but if it's coming on at 3 a.m., you're not going to see that.
So how can overwatering, or like you said, inefficient watering with the geysers spraying up, how can that impact our local water supply?
One thing that we noticed really in the last couple of years, and other utilities have noticed this too, is that when people are really irrigating a lot, our water towers that serve so much more than just sporting a fancy logo or the fantastic mural that we have, but they are providing water pressure, with the elevation, and that water pressure, going back to the pillars of water utilities, that supports fire protection. If we are draining the water towers due to heavy water demand for irrigation, then we have trouble keeping up with water pressure. So that's one immediate impact. Also with our aquifer, if it's not just College Station using it. It's College Station, it's Bryan, it's Texas A&M, it's Wixon and Wellborn. So if we're all heavily pumping the aquifer, then our wells are not producing as much water in terms of gallons per minute. And there's an energy cost to that too. So there's a whole list of benefits with irrigation and just conservation in general.
Yes, and this is something that I think is important with our city facilities because we use irrigation too for our fields and our landscapes, but that is a different water supply.
One of them, yeah.
Yes.
The Veterans Park is watered with reclaimed water, which is treated effluent from our Carter Creek wastewater treatment plant. And so because that's watered with reclaimed water, it's not relying on groundwater, so that's a big savings there. But other city facilities, the ball fields, the city buildings, those are watered with, irrigated just the same as any other commercial business or residential. Sometimes people will spar with me a little bit and say that, oh, well, city facilities, they're not following the ordinances or something. And I tell them, we follow the rules, the rules that we set out in our drought ordinance, we also follow them. And if you see something not following those rules, say something,
yes,
and we will fix it.
Let us know.
Yeah.
We will fix it. Sometimes, I know we've said before with PD and with fire, our residents are our second set of eyes.
Yes.
Because there are some things that we don't always catch, and there are a lot more of you residents than there are of us. So if you see something, don't hesitate to reach out, send us a message on social media, or contact Water Services. We're here to serve, we're here to
Right.
help. And part of that is, we need to be aware of things that are happening. So before we wrap up with Smart Irrigation Month, we kind of talked about it, but what are some common mistakes that people make with their irrigation systems?
Probably just doing set it and forget it, and watering immediately after a rain when we don't need it. Having a rain sensor is good, but sometimes they will dry out before your landscape needs to be watered again. So again, if we have a lot of rain, turn your system off and then just wait and turn it back on again when we need rain. Operating things with broken or misdirected sprinkler heads, and not understanding how much it uses.
Right.
A typical single-family house with no irrigation in the winter months will use between 3,000 and 5,000 gallons for the entire month. A sprinkler system can use that much in one cycle.
Right.
So, one runtime on Monday, going through all of the stations. And then if you're doing that 3 or 4 days a week, pretty soon your bill is going to add up. And people will come to me and say, there's no way I could have used that much water. And I'll do an irrigation checkup and say, your system uses 15 gallons a minute and you're running it X number of minutes per week.
Yeah. We had that issue. My husband and I got a call saying, hey, just so you know, we've recorded that you're producing this many gallons of water. And I was like, oh my gosh, did my cat turn the faucet on while I was gone? What is going on? And they came out there and oh, there's a leak in your irrigation system. So when you ran it this morning, it was just essentially dumping and wasting water. That was something that, we didn't know until we found out that was the case, which is why our city, we live in the city of Bryan, and they don't offer this service, but an irrigation checkup is something that the College Station Water Services Department offers. How can someone schedule a water irrigation checkup for their irrigation system?
Probably the easiest way is to just go onto the website and look for the form that says request an irrigation checkup, and then they can put in their name and address. Putting in the account number helps, but it's as long as I have the name and address and contact information, and then if there's a specific concern that they have, that will help me prepare for the checkup. They take about 30 to 45 minutes to complete, and I'll give them a written report. I go through every zone and stick flags on any area that's causing problems, like a broken head or something that's misdirected or something like that.
Yes, and it's completely free, correct?
Correct. It is completely free.
Yes, which is very, very helpful. Now, if there are any repairs that are needed, we do not make those repairs.
Correct.
But you can suggest what repairs are needed and who they contact.
Yeah, I maintain a list of not necessarily endorsed irrigators, but just I want to make sure that people use a licensed irrigator, not necessarily a yardman or a landscape guy. If you are performing work on an irrigation system for money, then you need to be either, mainly you need to be a licensed irrigator or an irrigation technician. There's a few different things that qualify for that, but you can't just be Joe Landscaper person and do that. That's a Class C misdemeanor. So, and the cities can enforce on that. So I provide customers with a list of individuals that I know maintain that license, and they'll ask well, which one do you recommend? And I say, no, pick one from the list. You choose. I am not, but you must have somebody. And I say, I am not going to give you that information.
Right.
But yeah, so the report is really valuable for the customer and for the irrigation company, because the customer can hand them my report, and the irrigator already knows, and especially if they have it ahead of time, then they know what tools and materials they need to bring to the job. They can go in and get it done and help optimize the customer system that way.
And with the Smart Irrigation Month, we have some rebates that are available to customers for irrigation. Can you walk us through how those rebates work?
Yes. So we set it up all online, and the customer just fills out a form, sends us pictures of their the equipment that they had replaced and the receipts so that we can have documentation for that. And then it will be applied as a 50%, a credit of 50% of whatever that amount was, up to $500 on their utility bill. And the specific products are EPA WaterSense labeled controllers, and those are already independently third-party verified to be at least 20% more efficient than their non-conserving counterparts. So that way I don't have to keep up with, well, what about this controller? What about that controller? I tell customers, go to this website, check if your controller's on that list. If it is, great. And then also pressure compensating sprinkler bodies, because if we have high water pressure in an irrigation system, it's going to fog and mist and be inefficient in the application of water. So the sprinkler bodies are eligible for the rebate. And then also there's some efficient water nozzles, so those are eligible also.
And how can residents apply? Like you said, it's on the website. Are there any stipulations that they need to know about? Or if they have any questions, where can they
If they have any
answers?
questions, I would say, go to the cstx.gov/water, and the information will be there. Just make sure that you have the receipts and the documentation, and show us that that it's installed. And if you're putting in, you can make repairs on your irrigation system yourself. You can put in your own controller. If you have someone do that for you, then they need to be a licensed irrigator or have one of the other appropriate licenses. Yeah.
Now, switching gears, the recent drinking water quality report was released for the previous year, 2024. So what goes into maintaining a high level of drinking water?
There's a great deal that goes into it. We have the staff at our pumping station is monitoring the amounts of chlorine that we put into the water for disinfection. We want to make sure that it's, we'll add chlorine disinfection there. We add also a little bit of chlorine disinfection at our well field pumping station so that the water is clean throughout the system. But we also need to maintain that disinfectant residual at the farthest points of our distribution system, because when water sits for a while, that chlorine disinfectant can dissipate some, and then if it's not disinfected, then there's the potential for bacteria or germs to get in and spread waterborne disease. We don't want that. So that's one thing that we do. We also are taking samples throughout our distribution system to check for bacterial contamination, check that disinfectant level. We're checking on the pH, the temperature. We record all kinds of data. The state comes in and collects samples on different contaminants on a regular basis, but it's different for different contaminants because we're groundwater based. So things that might change often, like chlorine, we're monitoring those on a regular basis. Things like synthetic organic chemicals or volatile organic chemicals or metals or minerals, those aren't going to change very often because, again, it's coming from 3,000 feet deep. It's just there. So those are monitored between on a 3-year basis or 5-year basis. And then we're also, right now, to comply with the lead and copper rule, we're conducting tap sampling. And so that involves us dropping off a bottle at a customer's house and then telling them, please collect a sample after the water's been sitting in the pipes for 6 hours or longer. So they have to get up first thing in the morning and remember, I got to fill that bottle and then put it out on the porch. But that's really important.
Yes.
And we do that every 3 years.
Gotcha. So what are the key takeaways from this year's report?
The key takeaways are, there's a couple of things in there that I think people might be, they'll look at it and might be a little bit alarmed about. most of the language in that report is dictated by either the EPA or the TCEQ, EPA being the federal environmental regulatory agency, TCEQ is our state environmental agency. So there are things like a sentence like all drinking water may contain contaminants, and people look at that and go, well, I guess I can't drink it now. But anything other than hydrogen or oxygen is technically a contaminant.
Right.
So, and then also there's language in there about certain things may be found in the source water. The source water is the untreated raw water. So the tables show everything that was found in the finished water, and then how it compares to the standards and if we had a violation or not. Just to make it easy for people, I have a little column on the right hand side that says violation, yes, no, and they all say no because we didn't have any violations. Yay.
Always good to hear. And how do y'all ensure that we meet the standards or these federal or state regulations?
Well, we have this goes back to the operators and the licensing. We have to maintain, based on our size, maintain operators with a certain level of licensing, based on our population and connections. So that's one thing. The operators, to obtain those licenses, have to go through classes and continuing education. We also have regular inspections by the TCEQ. We'll prepare for those inspections. And then we know what the rules are of how often we're supposed to be flushing our fire hydrants to maintain water quality, or collecting samples. So just checking all those boxes and making sure that everything is in proper working order.
And were there any notable changes or improvements in this year's report?
Some changes are due to some changes to the lead and copper rule. We are conducting an inventory of all of our service lines throughout the distribution system, and we're looking at what the material is. Is it lead? Is it galvanized metal? Is it non-lead? And so a link to that online inventory is in the report. Also, EPA made some changes about what we tell customers about lead in their drinking water. And, to date, we have not found any service lines that are that have lead. And when we do our every 3-year tap sampling, we haven't had any violations there. So we're good going forward, but the language in the report might be kind of alarming. Somebody might look at that and go, ooh, I don't know. But,
yeah.
And that's because there is no safe level of lead in drinking water. Like, we don't want it in the water,
right,
period. But some of the language in the report might give people pause. But, we also put in the report, if you have questions, here's a number to contact. And that I'm the person that you contact, and I will happily walk them through the report and explain, you don't need to worry about this, you don't need to worry about that. Last year, was the first year that we had to report on the PFAS substances, and that was done through the unregulated contaminant monitoring rule. PFAS are those forever chemicals that people have been hearing about, and you see that in the report, and you might go, ugh. So I included an explanatory paragraph of we don't really need to worry. This is why we did it. This is what we found. This is what it means. We're good.
Yes, definitely. If you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Where can people find the water quality report?
This is another great thing that Public Communications did, is putting it online. You just go to cstx.gov/water report, and we keep that URL the same every year and just update the report. And what we did was we put it on people's utility bills, like on the actual bill itself, and then also in the email that they get saying your utility bill is due. These reports have to be directly provided to all of our water customers, but we had, with thousands and thousands of customers, if it's a multi-page printed report, that gets very expensive. And these reports actually, they kind of predate the internet. So they used to be required to be mailed, and that was the only way they could go. Within the past couple of years, we've switched to electronic delivery of it, and so that's how we did that. But yeah, just click that link, and we'll update the report every year. If you have questions about what's in the report, you can contact me or contact any of our other utility staff. We're all really versed in it. But I would highly encourage people to read this report because it answers so many questions that people have. Like, where does our water come from? Can I drink it? I don't know. Why does it feel? Or when when people get a new dishwasher, they always call in and ask, what's the hardness of the water and
Right.
grains per gallon? That's on that report. I heard there's sodium in the water. How much? That's in the report, you know.
So yes, any questions you have about our water can be found in that report. And any other questions you have, contact Jennifer. She's more than happy to answer
Yeah.
them. Before we go, we've started doing a fun little game here. And all of these questions are related to water today. So are you ready?
Okay,
Okay. Do you prefer still or sparkling water?
still.
Okay. Ice water or room temperature water?
Ice water.
And morning shower or evening shower?
Kind of both. Depends on, you know, if I've been a good girl and I get to the gym in the morning, then it's a morning shower. If I want to snuggle into bed and, you know, have a good sleep, then evening shower, because it's nice to take a shower and then just hit the sack.
Yes, yes. Do you prefer a water slide or water balloons?
Probably water slide. Water balloons are more convenient, but water slides are fun.
Yes, they are. And do you prefer a Stanley or a Swig water bottle?
Probably a swig. The Stanleys that we have, because my girls had to have them, they got those tumblers, but they leak.
Oh, okay. Good to
They-
know.
when they fall over, they leak. But yeah, I definitely encourage people to bring their reusable water bottle with them and fill them up at any of the, you know, the little water bottle filling stations that you see at different city facilities or schools. And when you do that, know that College Station Water Services provided that to you.
Yes, yes. Definitely carry your reusable water bottle. Well, thank you so much for being here today, Jennifer. One
Thank
more
you for
time,
having me.
if people have questions, where can they find more?
cstx.gov/water, and they can email me, jnations@cstx.gov. Call me 764-6223.
Alrighty.
Thank you.
And that's what's up.